Mark and I met during a terrifying time in our freshman year. A student we both knew was brutally murdered in her dorm, stabbed repeatedly. The killer vanished, taking the victim's eyes, mouth, and nose with him. The whole campus was on edge, but I found solace in Mark. He was my rock, a steady presence through the fear and uncertainty. We grew closer, our bond forged in that crucible, and eventually said, "I do," a few years after graduation. Life seemed perfect. Mark thrived as a software developer while I found my calling teaching high school. We bought a charming house in a quiet neighborhood, a haven of happiness for 10 years. But 3 weeks ago, a disquieting comment from Mark sparked a flicker of unease. He mentioned strange noises in the attic and a sudden urge to clear it out. I was preoccupied with dinner and brushed it off, but his insistence felt odd. He seemed strangely fixated on the attic, despite my nonchalance. Curiosity gnawed at me one morning after Mark left for work. His behavior had been off lately, and I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. Ignoring the rising anxiety, I decided to investigate the attic myself. My heart hammered as I climbed the creaking stairs. Dust motes danced in the dim light as I switched on my phone's flashlight. The attic was vast, a treasure trove of forgotten furniture and dusty boxes. My eyes landed on a stack labeled with Mark's name. A pang of guilt pricked at me for invading his privacy, but curiosity was a relentless force. I pulled the first box closer and opened it, revealing old clothes and childhood keepsakes. The second box held more of the same, but the third one was different. My heart lurched as I lifted the lid, revealing a heavy leather-bound photo album. The weight in my hands felt both literal and metaphorical. I opened it to the first page, and a black and white photo of a young Mark playing carefree in a park greeted me. But at the edge of the frame stood another boy, identical to Mark, yet with a chillingly dark expression. Every page followed the same pattern: a happy, youthful Mark and his sinister twin lurking in the shadows, his gaze cold and malevolent. Panic clawed at my throat as I flipped through the album, each picture more unsettling than the last. The doppelganger seemed to grow more menacing with each passing photograph. What secret was Mark hiding? Why had he kept this from me all these years? That evening, when Mark walked through the door, I confronted him. The album laid accusingly on the kitchen table. My voice trembled as I demanded, "Mark, what is this? Who is this boy in the pictures?" His face drained of color as he saw the album. He collapsed into a chair, his hands shaking. "Isabelle, I never wanted you to see this. I've kept it hidden for so long." He confessed the boy in the photos was his twin brother, Michael, who had died before birth. But Michael's spirit, it seemed, had lingered, a dark, malevolent entity that watched and waited. The album, he explained, was a way to contain Michael, trapping him within its pages. But by opening it, I had inadvertently set him free. Fear choked me. What do we do now, Mark? How do we stop him? Mark looked defeated. "I don't know, Isabelle. He's been waiting for this." The weight of his words settled on me like a shroud, but a different kind of fire blazed in my chest. A fierce love for the man beside me, a love that wouldn't be extinguished by the darkness he harbored. Cupping his face, I brushed away a stray tear with my thumb. "We'll face it together, Mark, but right now, we need each other." My voice was a low murmur, a promise against the encroaching shadows. His eyes searched mine, a flicker of hope battling the fear that clouded them. Pulling him close, I felt the warmth of his body against mine, a familiar comfort amidst the chaos. His lips met mine in a kiss that was both desperate and tender. We clung to each other, a silent plea for solace in the face of the unknown. As the kiss deepened, urgency gave way to a slow exploration. My fingers traced the familiar lines of his back, sending shivers down his spine. His touch, hesitant at first, grew confident as he rediscovered the woman he loved, the woman who wouldn't abandon him. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air. but for those stolen moments, we were a universe unto ourselves. Love, raw and fierce, filled the room, pushing back the encroaching darkness. In the press of our bodies, a silent vow was made, to face whatever came, together. Desperation fueled our actions. I threw some things in a bag while Mark retrieved the album. We rushed out, hearts pounding, and sped away in the car, hoping to outrun the malevolent spirit. But as we raced through the dark streets, I saw a reflection in the rearview mirror that sent shivers down my spine. Michael's sinister face, a wicked grin plastered across it, stared back at me. "Mark, he's here!" I screamed, terror raw in my voice. Mark's knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. "Hold on, Isabelle. We need to find help." But help never came. A blinding flash of headlights, a deafening screech of metal, and then darkness. When I awoke in the sterile whiteness of the hospital room, a police officer stood by my bedside, his expression grim. "Mrs. Evans," he began, his voice heavy with sympathy, "I'm afraid your husband didn't survive the accident." Tears welled up in my eyes as he continued. "We need to ask you some questions. Mr. Evans's DNA has been linked to several unsolved murders, including the infamous college butcher cases from years ago." Shock washed over me. "What? That's impossible. Mark? Murder? No, he wouldn't."